Hi, I'm Lawrence Linker. I've been in the crypto industry for 3 years. I've gathered great friends here today to talk about crypto.
My first time hearing about crypto, I remember it was at the back of a boat. They got themselves caught short because they did a lot of things they probably shouldn't have.
You need to get involved in this because this is going to be huge. This puts power back in people's hands.
Nobody actually has a crystal ball to know what's next.
There's never a better time to always just start dabbling.
The space has come along tremendously.
I feel like we really brought this around to like a more positive place.
We pop like the Crisco, got rich off the crypto. I'm winning again, you can like it or not.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Linker. I've been in the crypto industry for 3 years. When I joined, I felt like I had a lot of catching up to do. The easiest way that I found to learn was to talk to friends in the industry who could share their experiences firsthand. And so I wanted to offer that experience to everyone else. I've gathered 3 great friends here today to talk about crypto. Dan, Jeff, and Kevin. Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Kevin Cole. I'm the COO at Great Southgate Asset Management. We operate in a very unique niche in crypto, sort of between sort of TradFi and more the crypto native space. We operate several regulated crypto funds, a brokerage here in Singapore, as well as a digital asset infrastructure company. We spent a lot of time working with a lot of crypto service providers, platforms to basically bring their products and platforms into more of the TradFi space, allowing investors to deploy assets into it. So we've touched everything upon trading in spot markets, derivative markets, DeFi, and also now more in the NFT space.
Jeff?
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Lawrence. Jeff Ma, the CIO of Wampo Digital. So Wampo Digital is a newly founded VC fund, co-founded by myself and my partner, Peter, and a family office in Singapore. Consists of 2 prominent families. Both are from Lee backgrounds. I personally started from traditional finance and then moved to crypto about 2 years ago, joined Binance as a director of Binance Labs. So I think, what the podcast that you guys are doing is great because I face exactly the same issue when first on crypto. I didn't know where to start. So, great. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Dan?
Lawrence, thanks for having me. Dan, I've been in crypto space for about the last 5 years professionally, 7 or 8 years personally, and spent the last year at Credo, which is a MPC wallet as a service company. We service both the B2B market as well as the B2C market. And the 4.5 years before that, I was leading up BitGo, which is both a centralized custodian with a license operating out of the US, as well as a multi-sig B2B wallet as well.
Very cool. I wanted to talk maybe next about what was it that got you to commit to crypto? Because I know, like, for my story, I first heard about crypto in 2010. It sounded interesting, but it didn't feel like, okay, this is the thing I have to do, right? It sort of built up over time to where eventually I said, I just can't wait anymore. I got to find a way to get into the industry. So maybe what was that moment like for you, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I share a very similar experience. I would consider myself as a late adopter. My first time hearing about crypto or blockchain is in 2017. I remember it was at the back of a boat when I was doing wakeboarding. 2 of my friends were like, okay, invest in equity. You got to buy Ethereum and Neo. And Neo is like the Chinese version of Ethereum. Like, what are you talking about, right? And I went online. And it was all just like about financial investment. It wasn't about any utility about the crypto, what does it do and all that. And so I skipped that whole and I didn't put in any money there. And it wasn't until late 2020 when I came across crypto again. And what sort of attracted me was the ecosystem that is built. So I remember back in 2017, there was literally nothing. It's all just financial investment. In 2020, when I was looking into space, you actually have to download a wallet. You go through a dApp, you go through on-ramp, off-ramp through like a P2P, you buy your first, crypto either on a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange. So that whole ecosystem is actually quite vibrant already. And what attracted me to sort of spend more time there was the fact that, hey, I don't actually have to go through any of the traditional sources or traditional finance to go through all this action. So it's actually building its own ecosystem, which I thought was really exciting. And why I would spend more time looking at it, thinking about the possibilities that it could sort of disrupt decentralized current spaces and all that. That's why I thought, okay, this is definitely an industry that, I want to spend more time. What keeps me around, I would say, is definitely the people. Just the fact that everyone wants to explore innovation. Everyone is very willing to collaborate and all that, which I feel like that energy really drives, like what I do every day.
Yeah, great. Cool. Dan, how about yourself?
Yeah, so from my end, I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013, but unfortunately, I didn't do the due diligence and process of really learning about it. In fact, Coinbase back then made it so easy for people to buy it and hold it and store it that you really didn't need to learn much about it in order to access it. Like, they did a really good job back then. And it wasn't until, those coins sat in my wallet from 2013 all the way to 2017. And in 2017, the Bitcoin network went through a hard fork, which produced Bitcoin Cash. And in 2017, Coinbase sent a note to all their users, which said, like, we're not supporting this fork. Like, we're just going to keep supporting the main Bitcoin. And so being in Asia, which was good, gave me a unique perspective. Like, I knew a lot of the miners were in Asia at the time, and this Bitcoin Cash was being backed by a few of the crypto OGs in Asia. And so I had no other option besides learn how to access this Bitcoin Cash myself. And to make a long story short, basically, you had to withdraw your assets from Coinbase on your own set of private keys. And, even in 2017, I'd owned this Bitcoin for 4 years. I didn't really know how to operate a private key or do anything like that. And so I had to self-teach myself, buy a ledger online, mess with Electrum wallet, and take the coins off of Coinbase, fork the coins, and then send transactions myself. And the aha moment was none of that except the actual time you're sending your coins, right? It is one of the most scariest things you can deal with in crypto, right? You have this ledger, and the reason it's so scary is also the reason it's so powerful, and that's because you don't need permission to send it. There's nobody double checking you. You can't call up a bank and say, hey, I sent this to the wrong person. Can you send it back? Your palms are sweating. You're holding this ledger. You're double checking these addresses, all these complicated things. And that was also my aha moment that said, like, you need to get involved in this because this is going to be huge. This puts power back in people's hands, and it's cross-border. There's so many implications. And so right after the network forked in October, started looking for jobs in the crypto space and joined it pretty shortly after because I wanted to try to make an impact and bring this information to other people.
Very cool. Cool. Kevin, what's your story?
So going back to 2011, I was an avid reader of Zero Hedge when it was more of a libertarian news site, less so conspiracy news site. And that's when I first heard about Bitcoin. I didn't put much thought into it, but then fast forward to 2015 and 16, they were publishing a lot of articles about Bitcoin. And I remember reading an article about how China was implementing a lot of currency restrictions and controls that was leading to a big drive up in price from Bitcoin, which was at the time around 300. You were also reading a lot about Venezuela, which had the highest inflation in the world, and that people were buying Bitcoins. At the time, I was working as a COO in global markets here in Singapore at an investment bank, and it really resonated with me looking at markets. And so I endeavored to figure out a lot more that I could about it, spent time on a lot of blogs such as Bitcoin Talk, started doing my own research, and wanted to figure out how do I buy a Bitcoin and what is a Bitcoin. And in Asia at the time, there weren't that many options. Certainly you had Coinbase, but you had to figure out how to get money into Xfers, into a Malaysian bank account, and then into Coinbase, and then acquire the Bitcoin. Or you could try to send money to some bank account in Hong Kong to do an OTC deal with a company you've never heard of, hoping that you send them cash so they'll send you your Bitcoin. Eventually, I figured out how to go through that process, much as Dan did. And to me, there was definitely an aha moment there. You had the whole permissionless or censorship resistant aspect of it. You had the decentralized nature of it. And also working in markets where we were dealing with a lot of compliance issues and seeing that governments were really centralizing a lot more of the system, controlling a lot more access to capital. To me, this seemed like a great opportunity to sort of break that paradigm. In 2017, I was introduced through a friend to a guy named Justin Chow, a fellow friend of ours. He was looking at making the move from DRW to Cumberland. We spent a lot of time talking about it, and I realized that there actually may be a way into this space. A few introductions later, I was introduced to the founder of then GSG, and there was an opportunity to start this company. And that's when I made the jump in the summer of 2018.
So one of the things that I want to ask you guys about, because it's something I experienced myself, when I started working in crypto in the beginning of 2020, I had the feeling that everyone I said, people would say, "What do you do?" And I would say, "I do crypto," and people were almost like jealous, right? People were like, "Wow, that's really cool," or like, "Wow," or like, And in the last maybe 6 months, it's a very different reaction, isn't it? How are you personally feeling about not necessarily the reality of the crypto industry right now, but just being someone working in crypto when a little bit of that shine has come off of it? It feels like it's a little bit more controversial now. How are you sort of personally dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, you got to take the highs with the lows, right? So it's easy and it's fun when the market's flying, and it gets a little bit tougher when the market's not. But I'll swear by this. In a bull market, like, anybody will pay you for anything, right? People are not really paying attention to what the services you're providing, what sort of value you're providing. Everyone kind of floats up with like the tide. And I think in a bear market, you really sit down, and I think people are paying attention to what they're spending their time doing, what they're spending their money on, and what services they're using. And I truly believe in a bear market, you can really shine if you're providing a service that people are willing to commit to and use and pay for. Because in a bull market, everyone, tends to be pretty successful. And so if you can survive in a bear market, you're really, really onto something. So there's been a pretty good reset this year on people focusing on what matters and what's pushing the market forward instead of what's kind of a money grab.
I agree with what Dan's saying. And, going back to like the whole point about people thinking like it's not as attractive at this point, totally feel that way. Because I'm from Hong Kong, and when I was back in Hong Kong, whenever you say you work in Web3 or crypto, the immediate thing they associate you is NFT. Because like NFT was like the biggest thing in like Hong Kong like last 6-8 months. And they're like, oh, what profile picture, project you launch? Is your company like some sort of cats and all that? So there's just a lot of like generalization for people that's not in the space. What they didn't realize is that, Web3 itself, right? Crypto, Web3, blockchain, there's actually a lot more than just, whether it's NFTs or financial speculation and all that. And, very similar to what Dan's saying, like what I agree is like in a bear market, it's perfect to build because not just valuation has come down, a lot of the hype that, maybe people outside of the circle, they have the capital, in a bull market, they would just pour whatever capital is in anything that sounds sexy, which is actually pretty annoying for VCs or just value investors looking for projects because, you want to invest in projects, but you want to invest also in a reasonable valuation as well, right? So bear market provides a lot more opportunity for us to do that. And I feel like relationships built in the bear market's also a lot more intact because people know that you're in it for a long term, not just like, for capital raising to make a quick buck and so on and so forth. So, I'm on the same camp that, bear market's good in its own sense as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my perspective is colored by getting into the space in 2017 and 18 when, individuals working in, say, the traditional finance space really looked down upon crypto. So there was really an underdog mentality coming in. I think maybe Dan can also relate there, where I remember I worked on the trading floor. There were over 200. We had traders, salespeople, research. There was only 2 people on the trading floor who were into crypto. There was myself and the research compliance officer who would do a lot of peer-to-peer Bitcoin deals in Raffles Place MRT. And I remember when I sent out my email letting everybody know I was leaving the firm to go into crypto and say, hey, anybody getting into crypto, please contact me. And nobody contacted me. And then fast forward to, 2000 and 2021, all of a sudden, all these folks started coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, I'm really interested in crypto. I've been experimenting. Do you think I can get a job? So with that perspective in mind, for folks who really have gotten in this place because they believe in themselves, they believe in what they're doing, there's a lot of other reasons there, we're able to sort of persist through these different markets. When I jumped in the summer of 2018, we were kind of coming, as the market was kind of coming down, Bitcoin had gone from the highs down to 3,000. A lot of projects that did ICOs were blowing up. And so 2019, that was really a bear market where we had to go out and make a lot of friends. I think I met Dan in 2018 and 19. We started coming across a lot of other players in the space. Sam Bankman-Fried, Suzu, all these guys were out there trying to figure out how to make money and survive in the bear market. Fast forward to today, actually the space has come along tremendously. Back then, there were no institutional players. There was no great infrastructure. There was none of those things. But fast forward today, we have a lot of those. And so I actually am very grateful to be in this space. I think to your point right now, we have a lot of folks who are actually focused on building, creating things that have value. They're not just money grabs. And so I think those folks who were able to get through this market will do incredibly well in the future.
Ooh, very good. Cool. All right, guys, let's move on to talking about the markets, maybe a little related to the last question. We know that token prices are not what they used to be. The overall price of crypto assets, the market cap of crypto assets is, I think, less than half of its peak currently. I guess the way I would want to frame this question is a lot of people ask me, like, when should I buy? And it seems they're often talking about Bitcoin. And at 16,000, I told people to wait. I said, you have time. And it seems like maybe I was wrong about that. What would you say to somebody who asked you now, is this the right time to buy?
Well, I think anybody that tells you they know where the price is going or even thinks where it's going is probably not worth listening to. I mean, I tell my friends all the same thing, which is pick an allocation that you're comfortable with, and the easiest thing is to kind of just dollar cost average, right? But I want to use this question to kind of address something that I'm currently seeing in the market, which is like 90% to 95% of people are focused on what I'll call financialization or like the investment side of it, right? But even in the last 3 months, like I'll call it the enterprise side, or they're also institutions, right? But I'm talking like Walmart, Starbucks, Louis Vuitton, Nike. They have launched crypto products, right? And in Nike, you can go to their website now and actually make a crypto wallet on Nike's website and trade their NFTs. Starbucks NFTs are trading at like 10x higher than where they were when they first were like minted, right? And so I try to refrain from like giving price predictions outside of dollar cost average, but I will say this, there's never a better time to always just start dabbling, right, in it. And when I say dabbling, I'm saying go out, get yourself a wallet, make yourself a Nike wallet, see if you can hold a Nike NFT. CeFi platforms are great to help you onboard. They abstract away a lot of this, but I always tell friends and recommend like start with a MetaMask wallet, then you can explore stuff more complex later on. And remove some of those assets from your centralized wallet and start dabbling around with things like NFTs or peer-to-peer trading or stuff like that. And that will like pique your interest. And then I think with your personal interest being piqued, it also helps kind of drive your investment thesis, right? Like having your friend say, oh, buy this stock because I like it is not as good as you using the service every day and being like, oh, I'm going to buy McDonald's because I eat McDonald's every day or something stupid like that.
I don't know if I totally agree with that, because I think that, you can have an experience with a company that shapes your view of it, and the market doesn't always respond that way, right? There's so many other factors at play. Kevin, what's your view currently? There's a lot of people using the word bear trap right now, right? Or bull trap, rather. What is it that you think is going on?
Well, I'll say first of all, I'm a terrible trader. And though I work at an investment firm, as a COO, I spend a lot of time looking at infrastructure, looking at operations, looking at scalability, and I spend very little time actually myself looking at markets. Whatever I hold or I've held, I've just bought a long time ago, and I really haven't ever looked at it or touched it. What excites me the most about the space is that the infrastructure is starting to build and evolve to a point that it's becoming a lot more scalable, that you're seeing a lot more, corporates and institutions not only have the interest, but being able to have the ability to bring that infrastructure into their business, have the right teams that are understand and educated about it to actually help to build the rails and the pipes and the plumbing to expand adoption. And that's where I spend most of my time, actually. So if I'm not spending time with, large, crypto platforms that do wallets, such as maybe like Dan's or other ones, I'm spending a lot of time with startups that are trying to figure out how to solve real world problems. And that's what excites me the most. And so in the short term, as Dan is, I'm dollar cost average type of person, but in the long term, it's really exciting to see how there's a nonstop build of the infrastructure to support all the things that will be necessary to have this, digital asset or crypto future, whether you are more of a decentralized person or you're CDFI or whatnot. That's the really exciting part. I do spend a lot of time speaking to different financial institutions about how to bring digital assets into their infrastructure. We're spending time speaking to risk officers, compliance officers, front office people, and there's a big education process going on, and there's a tremendous amount of interest that is translating into, real world adoption. That is what gets me most excited, but that's a much more longer term type of view.
Jeff will probably give you the most direct answer because he's got to generate returns for.
I'd love a direct answer. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I got to give my indirect answer first. What we benefit and I guess our disadvantage is the illiquidity part, right? Which it means we just got to hold. We just got diamond hands. And even when the token is listed, we usually have a 6 month to 1 year period of lockup just to make sure we're aligned in the same interest. So we do follow markets, but we don't do it like extremely extensively as well, similar to Kevin. But what I would say is, Lawrence, to your point about the bear trap, I think I wouldn't say it's exactly a bear trap. However, what we do realize is that there's still a lot of things that we're seeing unfold recently. So, it was almost a year ago when the whole Terra Luna happened, and, there's just a lot of butterfly effect with Celsius, with 3AC and all that. And then FTX came around November time, and, there's another bunch that's related to FTX. Your DCG or your there's a lot of lending company I forgot, but just a bunch of these guys. And then Genesis, exactly. And then a week ago we saw what happened with Silvergate, which was to be honest, I was personally a little bit shocked myself because it's a US regulated bank, and it serves crypto companies. There is that Silvergate network, which is an advantage for them to sort of help crypto companies transact on a 24/7 basis. But they should be, fulfilling their regulatory compliance just like a full service bank. And, God knows what they actually did with the deposits, which caused the going concern issue that was around the media recently. So I would say a lot of these things are still sort of maybe gradually unfolding, and nobody actually has a crystal ball to know what's next.
Let me ask a more direct question then, okay? Because I guess what I've been feeling recently is, like you guys, I'm loyal to the crypto industry. I'm excited to be here. I see the potential of what we're trying to build, but we live in a world now where there's been these like successive failures this round. It's been starting with Terra Luna, right? Hopefully sort of peaking with FTX, little 3 arrows in between, right? And I think from an outsider looking in, it could be easy to say, wow, this industry is incredibly messed up, right? I think if we're being really honest with ourselves, I think that's how a lot of people view us right now. What do we say to those folks?
Actually, I would argue the other way around, because it is true that people are seeing a lot of the failure, but I think people in the industry realizes, what people in the outside of the industry doesn't realize, is that transparency was enabled by a lot of DeFi and on-chain activity. The fact that you can actually trace which wallet received what funds went to another wallet, and then what dApp it went to, and all that. That transparency was actually not available in traditional finance, and something that during the 2008 financial crises, it took probably years to actually unfold. Now, obviously, with what's happening with FTX, it also, still taking time to unfold. But people actually have a better idea at a shorter period of time on exactly knowing, how funds are actually being funneled or channeled across different players. So yes, it's true that I think, the public perception and the media has portrayed, okay, this industry has a lot of failure, a lot of scams and all that. But I feel like, we couldn't sort of underappreciate the innovation part, because that part actually enables a lot of that transparency, which I feel, once these bad actors are flushed away, that positive impact could actually be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would just say that they have a skewed kind of vision of the industry because they see all the negatives, right? Now, we have a skewed vision because we're day-to-day talking to people who are either in the industry using your service or those looking to enter to use your service, right? And so everything that I see on the people coming and approaching us to get into the industry still seems very, very positive. And like, to use a very direct example of this, like the blocks keep ticking, right? Bitcoin blocks are full, Ethereum blocks are full. So like somebody out there somewhere is finding value in transacting on this network, right? And Ethereum keeps pushing out upgrades that are pretty well reported on. People are still writing research, like banks are writing research reports on Ethereum upgrades. That's very positive. Bitcoin just has not its first, because there was an NFT platform before, but people are getting excited about Bitcoin NFTs again. The blocks are completely full. People are investing in mining infrastructure, wallet infrastructure to help these Bitcoin NFTs. And so I think there's always going to be like a battle or a rub between the visions of the industry that people see, but that is what creates the alpha or the opportunity to be in the industry to build and deliver a product. Because once those two match, then I would argue it's a mature industry with less opportunity, if that makes sense.
I think what I love about the crypto industry, but what drives those inside the industry and outside the industry crazy, is it's an extreme form of Darwinism and Schumpeterian creative destruction. This is Darwinism at its best. Things that should not exist. Terra Luna shouldn't have existed. It's gone. A lot of the lending practices that existed in the space, if you really look at it, they shouldn't have existed. They don't exist anymore. Even some of the the good actors in the space, who were, say, in the lending space, well, they got themselves caught short because they did a lot of things they probably shouldn't have. And so crypto reacts very, very quickly to that. And so you see a very Darwinistic type of thing. At the same time, you see a ton of creative destruction that's happening as we iterate with this grand experiment called, crypto. And I think that's the amazing thing about it. And if you have the stomach and the commitment and the interest, it can be a great place to be.
It's nothing new, by the way. You can read a history of the stock market, and like these practices were happening as the stock market was bootstrapping itself for liquidity and usage. And like, I know crypto people like to say, well, this stack that the TradFi world has built is inefficient, but I actually think it is the output of an iterative process of all of these blowups happening in different asset classes, right? I think a lot of people seem to understand we are in a completely different media regime at the moment that basically picks up on any sort of negative, fraudulent news story. And whether it's in crypto or any sort of industry, politics, TradFi, they really kind of exacerbate topics in certain industries and stuff like that. And so I think it's nothing new. I think it's some growing pains. I'm not trying to say like people didn't get hurt and like those things shouldn't have happened, but the industry is now, going in the same way that TradFi was and iterating on these things. And hopefully the output, this creative destruction, is something that works for everyone so that these things don't happen.
You've mentioned like ordinals. That to me, out of everything that has come out in the last, I don't know how many, last period, let's say, I felt like touched people like as a real innovation that got people really excited. First of all, can we just explain what is an ordinal?
For the layperson, it's Bitcoin's attempt to like bootstrap an NFT marketplace, right? There's a couple different implementations on Bitcoin with NFTs. You can look into Counterparty, you look into ordinals. They both use different techniques to inscribe these things on the blockchain. But to cut to the chase, it's effectively people are mining and minting Bitcoin NFTs on chain in Bitcoin. And I'll take your statement one step further. Like, I've seen people on Twitter say this is the most excited they've been in Bitcoin in the last 5 years. This is the most fun they've had with it. The really interesting thing when you peel the onion layer back with these ordinals is like, there's no centralized service that supports these at the moment. Like, you have to learn what you're doing in crypto, and you have to do the baptism of fire with like private keys and wallets to actually even access this market, the bidding, the storing, the writing, all this stuff. Like, you have to learn this, right? And so it is amazing to be in the industry and see something like that catch fire and people get excited, because it's not like what I will refer to as like a layer 2 service offered by a centralized service that's just doing a money grab because it's like a hot topic. Like this is a real thing happening on chain with people using real Bitcoin tools. And now the next 6 months, just watch, you'll see fundraising for an Ordinals NFT marketplace, fundraising for an Ordinals wallet company. And like, that's how this stuff happens.
This one really excites me. And I have to say, so what is an Ordinal? I think in the simplest possible terms, it is an NFT. I'm going to assume that everyone knows what an NFT is, but it's an NFT on Bitcoin, on the Bitcoin network. And I think what was so exciting about that is that you're not supposed to do NFTs on Bitcoin, right? That's kind of like a big part of why Ethereum and the other more sophisticated blockchains came out. And people are saying, no, we don't even need that. Actually, we can just do it on the Bitcoin network, right? Which I thought was really interesting. What else is going on that has you excited?
I'm again, it's really colored by my seat. But I'm really interested in what MakerDAO is doing with real world assets, RWAs. It's permissioned DeFi, where you're seeing, financial institutions are posting, say, collateral, and those assets are then being lent out. So you sort of have a hybrid world of where DeFi is meeting traditional finance. I think that's quite interesting. And if you then take that further, you can do that with all types of other assets. So I think that's quite interesting. I'm also really interested in what we're doing with soulbound tokens. It's kind of an idea, but the idea of digital identity, the idea that you own your own identity, and that identity can exist on the blockchain. I think that's something which is really exciting, but it's still very, very early days. And I won't bore everybody with all the other infrastructure stuff, which I spent a lot of time with, but that to me is really exciting because having come in this space 5 years ago when, we were trying to figure out, just basic things like custody, now we're getting into more interesting areas of how we're trying to do that at scale across a lot of different types of companies, use cases, regions, and industries. Yeah.
Very cool. Jeff, you got to be seeing a lot of innovation.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to wear my investments hat, I would agree with what Kevin's saying. Like the RWA part's definitely pretty interesting. The reason why I say investment specifically is because, I can see growth there and the involvement between the traditional finance people, the government themselves, and just, protocols building on that. Because if you think about CBDCs, if you think about tokenization of financial instruments, tokenization of real world assets and all that, there's just a huge market. Like you can just replicate like equity market or a debt market, but double or triple the size because of the accessibility it provides. So from the investment standpoint, I would say that. For a more personal standpoint, though, I would say it's probably the decentralization of creator economy, sort of what you guys are doing at XD Academy, decentralizing the creation of content, teachings, education, and all that. And that's really because, for me personally, what I really like about Web3 crypto is that it sort of realigns stakeholder interests. So previously, there's only, say, shareholder, company, and customer themselves are sort of like outside the formula. It doesn't matter. They're just like a revenue source and all that. What Web3 aligns, especially a token part, is sort of tied multiple stakeholders together, whether it's a customer, supplier, people in the community, et cetera, et cetera. You can actually incentivize them or motivate them to do certain things with the instrument of token. So, for example, what you guys are doing with XD Academy is definitely pretty interesting. Providing education to the crowd and then enabling content creation, from the crowd as well. All that's possible. The other example is, for example, the anime comic industry, like ACG. It enables engagement of the fans and the content creator, which in this case would be manga artists and all that. So all this couldn't be done in a Web2 world where everything is centralized. Whereas with Web3 crypto, you can actually decentralize that part and provides accessibility, maybe as an investment if you're early fan. So, that's what excites me personally.
Yeah, I could do a whole show on this. I mean, I might actually, because I think one of the things you kind of have to get to the point with any innovation is where the new thing has to be sort of undeniably better than what came before it, right? It has to be like, this is so much better that you would not use the other thing unless you couldn't get the new thing, right? And I think when you look at Web3 models for so many of the services that we use constantly today, they're undeniably better than their Web2 counterparts, right? So the rest just comes down to implementation.
basically, all these ideas you guys are talking about are very exciting, but at the end of the day, at the base layer, there needs to be security, governance, and a way to store this and interact with these assets, right? So excited for these multi-chain wallets that are getting quite user-friendly. Like what we're building at Credo, we support multiple chains, things like that, ways to interact with dApps. Ethereum just pushed a really big upgrade called account abstraction that everyone's excited about. And to sum this up, basically, I think this is going to actually enable companies like Starbucks, Nike, Louis Vuitton, etc., to basically have a single button on their website or inside their app that's going to allow them to spin up hopefully millions of wallets with a click of a button without the customer really having to hold any private key material or anything like that. So I anticipate a lot of multi-chain wallets and wallets to adopt this Ethereum upgrade, and then you're going to see a rush to sell to the likes of Starbucks, Walmart, and things like that. And then the third thing I'm excited about, more on a personal level, is I think the big breakthrough in NFTs this year is going to be around trading card games, right? So trading card games are super popular in real life, and there's a bit of element of democratization. When you open up a pack of cards, you get random stuff out of it. You build your deck of cards, you travel to, some convention, and then you play each other all day, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, something like that, right? And I think actually I've seen some pretty crazy stuff that NFT developers are able to do where you have an NFT wrapped around another set of NFTs, but you can't see in the first NFT, so you can crack that open, and then a bunch of other NFTs show up in your wallet. And so I think you're going to see some interesting trading card games where you open up these packs, you get random trading cards, you trade with different people online to build your deck. And then because we're using a blockchain and it's permissionless, you're going to be able to play anybody in the world in a fair trading card game at any time of the day. So from a personal perspective, I'm spending a lot of time exploring these types of things because I think it's pretty exciting. And that's like a crossroads of everything. It's like blockchain, marketing, art, conceptual stuff you need to think about when you're playing the game and things like that. And really excited about all of that. And then just how advanced the wallets and stuff are getting, where you're holding all this stuff. It's the UX and the hurdle to hold this stuff is coming down big time.
Cool, man. I feel like we really brought this around to a more positive place. I wanted to challenge, because I think that I also feel very positive. I think we have to sort of acknowledge, right? We can't be afraid to face, some of the negative stuff that we've seen as well. If you were someone, you mentioned, the Ethereum upgrade and stuff like that. How do you learn about this stuff? What are you guys reading, and what would you recommend? Someone maybe just getting started out, where should they learn?
First of all, I want to say to everyone, this is new for everybody, right? So even us sitting here, we've got to take the time to read about this stuff. It's not like people get on these podcasts or these presentations and know everything from day one, right? So honestly, I find the best place to learn is Twitter. People it's like the town square, right? People go there, you follow the right people, avoid politics, avoid the gym people on Twitter. They go crazy. Just follow some good blockchain people in the Web3 space, and they put out awesome threads, awesome resources, stuff like that. It's almost like a news aggregator. On the podcast side, there's one I can't recommend enough, which is just called Castle Island. I think podcasts have come and gone over the years, but this one releases every Friday, same format every Friday. I find it super easy to listen to, and these are big time VCs in the US, so they see a lot of interesting infrastructure stuff as well.
I think I'll sort of jump on what Dan's saying. We spend a lot of time on Twitter, let's do a lot of podcasts. I'll probably plug our own research team. They do a tremendous amount of work publishing. What they do is basically troll the whole space. They figure out what's interesting, what's the signal, what's the noise, and figure out, sort of giving us daily, weekly updates. They do a lot of deep research on particular projects and protocols so that I don't have to. At the same time, they also, for folks who are more investment minded, they also do a model portfolio for folks who are thinking about sort of a basket of investments. And so I spend time reading that daily. But again, I also spend a lot of time going on Twitter and Discord.
How can people get access to that?
We do have a Substack, which I can share with you afterwards.
No, can we, I think it's okay to plug.
Yeah, sure. For me, I'm happy to share with you, and I'll give you the Substack URL.
Okay. Yeah. You don't want to say that?
I think it's gsgasset.substack.com or something like that.
Okay. No, This is the first episode. This is the first episode. Probably, we're not expecting.
We're check box here.
Yeah. How do you say the top of things there?
I'll take a little bit of a different approach here. I think on the more general market updates and all that, everything of what Dan, Kevin, you guys said, it's good. My struggle is always there's just so much. Like, it's so hard to digest and follow. So how I started, now it's a little bit more difficult because I do have to kind of like be, I guess, on top of everything. But when I first started, I sort of chose a specific either ecosystem or a specific subsector that I'm interested in. So say, for example, I'm not showing BNB, but say if you're interested in BNB, then you spend more time looking at BNB stuff, looking at BNB dApps. If you're especially interested in, say, DeFi or like, say, leverage trading, then you look at, say, like you focus more looking at the trading applications like GMX and whatsoever. That way, I think you're a little bit more focused because it is a little bit difficult when there's just so much going on at every subsector and on every chain. So for me, I would say maybe spend like, say, 60% of your time on the more general stuff and then 40% maybe just focus on one specific thing, because that's always a little bit better for you to sort of concentrate the information. The second thing is always just, having some skin in the game is always going to be helpful, because you're always going to be worried, shit, like, why is my coin going down and all that. But yeah.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. And I tell people buy $100, right? Like most people, I think that I know can afford $100, right? And I feel like $100 is the perfect amount because it's like the amount of money that like you wouldn't be crazy to just lose, but you wouldn't like lose sleep if you lost, right? I think it's the perfect first amount to buy. Just buy $100, right? If it goes to 200, you're going to be really happy, right? If it goes to 50, you're going to be kind of annoyed. But either way, you're going to want to know why, right?
I think the single best piece of advice that I have is, you need to probably first generally find out which part you want to be in, right? There's consumer side of the business, there's B2B business side of the business, there's BD, marketing, sales, there's like a lot of different aspects, right? It's actually quite simple. If you follow the right people on Twitter or the right business newsletters, something like that, a lot of times these fundraising rounds are announced, right? And the single best time to contact a company that you're interested in or a part of the industry that you're interested in is right when they raise funds. Because when they raise those funds, they're responsible for hiring more people and bringing more people on board to build the business up, right? So you find out what part of the market you want to be in, then you just scour the fundraising announcements for a company that hits the interest and is hiring in the area that you want. And a lot of times you can contact them before they even get the job posting up on the site. I think this is the best way to approach it, right? You got to be ready to join probably an earlier stage company, but most of these companies respond right away. They're looking for talent as well. And so if you follow these steps, I find that you can get yourself at least a lot of conversations with folks.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I think it's, where you want to play, what you want to do, and how you're going to approach it. I think when, we started off earlier on, years ago, the bar wasn't as high. I think if you just had a general interest and you found a place you could add value, you could get a good job. I think more recently, a lot of the expectations of folks coming from the outside to the inside need to be a bit tempered, whether it's, salary expectations, whether it's, what exactly they're going to do. And, I think they also need to be a bit more long-term about their thinking. Friends of mine who I spoke to last year were super hot on getting into it. Now, I think they're not so much. But those who are interested really have a genuine interest, have the means to do so, the interest to do so. And so I think, my advice is similar to Dan, find out, who's raising money. Those are the folks who actually have the ability to go out and do some hiring right now. Whereas a lot of firms right now, I think, are more into reducing sort of their headcount or sort of freezing their headcount.
For me, I think the way I'll say is more like know your niche, which is pretty much like, like in the where to be, know what you want to do. My niche was, I came from the private equity space, and then Binance needed people that had a more fundamental mindset, looking at investments and all that. So that sort of served me well when I was looking into it. But I'm sure a lot of the guys that are talented looking to move to crypto space, they have their own niche, whether it's marketing, BD, and all that. And as Kevin said, like, the space it's like the bar has probably gone a little bit higher, but there's still a big talent gap for projects looking for people to add value. So knowing your niche is going to be extremely important. The second thing, especially what I've realized in the past year, is that there's a lot of more interesting ways that old folks like us wouldn't imagine, but young guys are getting into the industry. Like, I know a guy that's like 24 years old, but he was so involved in the B&B ecosystem, so he got a job even when he was in uni, for example. And I've heard multiple guys that are like that, and I think the key there is staying close to the ecosystem, because ecosystem don't sort of discriminate about your age, your gender, your nationality, or whatsoever. It's just based on your passion, your contribution, and all that, and all that can be seen, whether it's on the Discord, on Telegram, or whatsoever. So I think being involved in the community is probably also one way that people can be get in the industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of specific ways to contribute, right? Like, if you have an engineering background, a software engineering background, there's no how bad you could smell and not be able to get a job in crypto. We're so desperate for engineers. What other backgrounds do you feel like are most needed in crypto?
I think that crypto, you need to have a sorry, terminology, like self-learning capability, right? Everything new, half the topics we talked about today are less than 6 months old, right? This is not stuff we even brought from previous experience or anything like that, right? So you need to have some ambition to be basically capable to self-learn and read stuff and learn about stuff outside of your day job, right? I also think Jeff, skin in the game type of stuff like this, like you need to be like using these tools and like really figure out where you can fit in, within these organizations, right? And so random ways off the top of my head I can think of, like if you send bug reports to a company, right? Like send a support ticket and say like, hey, I was testing out your product, like this is what I noticed is wrong with it, right? Find out who the head of sales is and say like, hey, I found these 5 companies that I think could be like a good fit for you. Like, have you talked to anyone there? Even if it doesn't go anywhere, like it shows some initiative and it shows some self-learning. And I think like these are ways for non-technical people to potentially get involved. Videotape yourself using their product, screen share, put it on your Twitter, even if you have 400 followers, just show them that like you've done something, and I guarantee you'll get a conversation, because it's pretty rare to have those types of things happen.
I do think that in this time where the market is contracting a little bit, the ability for people who take the attitude that like, I'm an ex-professional just applying my skills to crypto, there's not as much room for those folks. Look, when crypto was booming and firms couldn't get people in the door fast enough, you've got room for those folks. But when times are leaner, you don't really have room. You kind of only have room for like the most passionate people.
I mean, I'm going to circle this back to what I said earlier, right? Like, I find it to be an interesting circle. Like, when it's a bull market, like you can sell anything to anybody, really, right? And people are willing to try stuff out because it seems interesting or whatever. And people sign on multiple different service providers and use different technologies and stuff like that. And when the spike happens, like they also need bodies in to process things like KYC, AML, lawyers to read over how many people are red marking the contracts, onboarding specialists and stuff like that. But then in a bear market or in a contraction, it's back to like people need to be sold things that are actually going to be useful to their business, like value accretive to their business, right? And so, to be completely honest with you, I find that only the most passionate people survive in that type of thing, because it's a lot of times not an easy sell. You really need to show somebody, whether you're demoing or whatever, your product, and show them that it's going to add value to their business. And a lot of times these actually do take somewhat of some crypto specific knowledge, because it might be a way to shave off, gas fees, or it might be a way to, hey, your wallet can become this more efficient, or this trading technology will shave off this amount of fees, right? So yeah, the spike was easy. Like, a lot of people got hired because people just needed bodies. Then the contraction happens, and now it's just kind of the weeding out into the most passionate people. And so again, to get over that hurdle of the most passionate people, you got to make some sort of initiative when you're applying to these companies and stuff like that. And it goes a super long way.
You have to be agile, right? To a point. Like you can change your job scope, like, maybe next week because of the product change, direction change and all that. And passion is the only thing that will keep you going, because you'll be, if you don't have the passion, you'll be like, oh, this is not what I'm supposed to do. This is not what I do. And then,
Yeah, I think what's interesting about, where I work is, unlike in my previous firm where people have roles where they're very disconnected from the ecosystem that they operated, at our firm, even my operations people know how to operate their own wallets. They know how to set up their own private wallets. They trade on exchanges. They trade DeFi. They buy NFTs. They play games, right? And so even, for example, as part of our onboarding process, one of the goals for our staff is figure out how to set up a wallet so I can send you crypto. Now, there's many ways that you can approach that. You can go onto an exchange, you can set up your own private wallet, and so on and so forth, but they have to figure that out. And that journey of exploration helps to, I'd say, unfold a lot of things, sort of the onion that you're kind of talking about. So much so now in our own day-to-day, when my team is working at sort of the coalface with other firms and moving assets around, we're trading, they actually really appreciate, understand what they're doing. And therefore they bring their own previous sort of experience along with what they've learned at our firm, and actually use that to help make us better and also make the other folks that we work with a lot better. And that's really cool. Each week we have a sort of a research update where everybody in our business, from our office manager, our ops, our compliance, our folks in the venture space, all get on a call and we talk about what's going on in the markets. So I think that's the really cool thing, is you still need to continually educate yourself, stay on top of things, and stay relevant. So, going to XD Academy, it's the same thing. Like it never gets old. There's always something to learn and something to do.
A lot of the people that I work with will say, like, well, I don't know a lot about crypto, right? But actually, even people who know a lot about crypto don't know a lot about crypto, right? We all tend to have certain areas that maybe we're more interested in, that we follow more closely. And we all have big gaps because there's just so much out there. There's so many angles you can look at it, from the financial angle to the legal angle to the technology angle, right? I really don't think there's anyone that really knows everything, right? So even if you know a little bit about crypto, actually, you're pretty okay. Yeah. Okay, guys, I think we're coming up on our time. This has been a really good discussion. I thought it'd be fun to end each of these. It's an experiment. We'll see if this stays in or not. But bring something topical in that's a little bit off, out of left field, has nothing to do with crypto, just to get a feel just from the guests. Chris Rock's special aired this week. He finally addressed the smack from Will Smith. It was very vicious in his response. I don't know if any of you guys caught this. But what do you think, guys? Will Smith smacking Chris Rock in the Oscars last year, a horrible act of violence or a justified defense of a man's wife?
Well, man, actually, what's interesting is when you first see it, it's so shocking that you think it must be staged, right? Yeah. And it took a while to kind of process that this actually happened and it was real. It was not staged. And even if you would have asked me last week, I would have been I'm not exactly 100% sure. And then his special airs and he's telling these pretty harsh jokes, and you're like, wow, that slap from a year ago was completely real.
It was real.
And then it just makes it all that, then I've seen snippets of it, right?
Okay,
and so now it just makes the whole thing seem really, really ridiculous, right? And I mean, not to go on too far of a tangent here, but I always laughed hockey players are allowed to fight on the ice, but if you and me fought in the stands, I'm pretty sure we would go to jail in the U.S.
Sure.
I don't think you're allowed to fight people.
No.
And I don't know the exact. I don't know the exact rules today in the U.S. It's gotten pretty crazy there. Yeah. But are you allowed to just slap people in public? I don't know. So
I don't think so. Yeah. I think some states, but I think there's isn't Texas has a dual you can two people and agree. No, I think there's some states where you can agree to dual combat. It's it's called mutual combat laws or something like that.
I'm pretty sure they were in California, and I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, so now that I know this like slap is real, I'm like, okay, actually that was like pretty vicious and like in front of a lot of people. So so I think like now he should be allowed to tell these jokes, which made me laugh.
Yeah.
And so that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you think, man?
It's a hard one, man. I mean, exactly as what Dan said, right? Like it is a little bit vicious. But you know what, man? Just have to do what they have to do. You know, that's their point, right? They have their own principles. It might be wrong, but and you think back, you still want to.
Why did he punch him? Why did he slap him?
Punch would have been
punch would be worse.
Maybe he thought through it.
Maybe he thought through it. Yeah. He wants to do it.
He thought that was the appropriate.
I mean, if you're it looks like a bit of a. If it's gonna have a negative check mark against you, you might as well just lay the guy out.
Yeah.
Then he'll think twice about joking about it. Now as he knows the worst he's gonna get is another slap, he'll keep joking about it.
Yeah.
Kevin,
I just think, like all things, life has consequences, right?
Wow.
So a man made his, guy said a joke about a guy's wife. Guy took umbrage and offense to it. He slapped him. He did what he felt was right at the time, but he also has to deal with the consequences. I mean, I think it's very, very simple. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Well, I'll take a different perspective.
Yeah, I want to hear yours.
I feel, and I feel like it's changed. Because I guess at the time I was kind of like, yeah, like that was, that's his wife, you know what I mean? And I think that I've totally changed on that to where, because what gets me is somebody said he wouldn't have done that if it was Kevin Hart.
Because Kevin Hart's shorter.
Well, he's bigger also, right? Or like he wouldn't have done that if it was The Rock.
Or like Eddie Murphy.
Right? Yeah.
Isn't it an unwritten rule that like comedy is comedy? Like that's what I've always heard. Like you're not supposed to take offense. Like once you start taking offense, then it's not the same thing. Not the same thing.
You're certainly not supposed to respond physically, right? Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for your time today. It was a really great conversation,
awesome,
and look forward to catching up with you all soon.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us, man.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you did, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listened to or watched it, and join us next time. And of course, please make sure to check XD Academy at xd.academy. We're putting up great new content all the time. Thanks so much and see you next time.